March 2024, Nigeria's Naira crashes to 1,800 per dollar. International headlines scream economic collapse. Financial experts on CNN, BBC, Bloomberg all writing obituaries for Africa's largest economy. But here's what nobody saw coming. By August 2025, just 17 months later, that same Naira that global powers dismissed was quietly transforming Nigeria into Africa's new trade powerhouse. Today, I'm going to show you how Nigeria pulled off one of the most stunning economic reversals in modern African history, and why what happens next has every major economy scrambling to understand the new rules of the game. But first, let me explain what really happened when everyone thought Nigeria was finished. Now, I want you to imagine this. You are holding Nigerian Naira in your hands. Yesterday, 100 Naira could buy you $1. Today, you need 1,800 Naira for that same dollar. That's devaluation when your currency loses value against other currencies. It's like watching your savings shrink before your eyes. Now, when this happens to most countries, panic sets in. People rush to buy foreign currency. Businesses struggle to import goods. The economy spirals downward. Here's where Nigeria's story gets interesting. President Bola Tinubu and his team weren't panicking. They were calculating. Sometimes what looks like a disaster to outsiders is actually a chess move by those who understand the deeper game. Because there is a hidden truth about currency that most people don't understand, and Nigeria was about to prove it to the world. But before I reveal that secret, you need to understand who was betting against them. Global financial establishments were ruthless. Reuters called it a turning point, but not in a good way. International investors pulled billions out of Nigerian markets. Rating agencies downgraded the country's outlook. The message was clear. Nigeria had lost control. Africa's giant was stumbling and the smart money was running for the exits. Here is a direct quote from a Chatham House analysis. Capital, albeit mostly speculative for now, is re-entering the country. Even when things started improving, the skepticism was still there. Speculative, they said. Not real, not sustainable. Now, I remember talking to a friend in Lagos during this period. She told me everyone is converting their Naira to dollars. Nobody trusted the currency anymore. But while ordinary Nigerians worried about their daily expenses, and while global experts wrote off the Naira as finished, something extraordinary was happening behind the scenes. The same forces that were destroying Nigeria's economy were actually to become its secret weapon. And here is how. Instead of fighting the devaluation with expensive interventions, burning through precious foreign reserves like most countries do, Tinubu's government made a counterintuitive decision. They let the market determine the Naira's value. Now think of it like this. Imagine you have been selling your product at artificially high prices and nobody's buying. Now instead of forcing the high price, you let the market find the real price. Suddenly, customers start flooding because your products are affordable. That's exactly what happened to Nigerian exports. I have a friend in Cameroon who started importing cosmetics and fashion dresses from Nigeria after the currency dropped. More to that, a bag of Nigerian cocoa that was overpriced in dollars yesterday became a bargain in global markets today. The same sesame seeds, the same processed foods, all suddenly competitive against rivals from other countries. But here is the number that could have made global economies stop and pay attention. Nigerian non-oil exports jumped from $2.7 billion to $3.2 billion just in 1 year. That's a 19.62% increase. And this wasn't just a numbers game on paper. And you know there is more. Export volumes, actual physical goods, rose from 3.83 million tons to 4.04 million tons. Foreign buyers weren't just paying different prices. They were buying more Nigerian products, period. And the real genius move was still yet to come, and it involves the biggest industrial project in African history. While everyone focused on the Naira's fall, a massive game changer was coming online: the Dangote Refinery. For decades, Nigeria had been trapped in a cruel irony. The country produces crude oil, but has to spend billions of dollars importing refined oil. Now, imagine a friend who grows wheat, but has to buy bread from his neighbors. The Dangote Refinery shatters this cycle. By processing crude oil locally, Nigeria slashed its import bill for petroleum products. Billions of dollars that used to flow out of the country now stay. But that was just the beginning. The refinery started exporting refined products, not just neighboring African countries, but to Asia, Europe, the Middle East. Nigeria transformed from a net importer of refined fuel to a net exporter of refined fuel. A trader I know in Abuja told me, instead of burning our reserves buying fuel from abroad, we are now earning dollars by selling fuel to the world. Now, this created what economists call the double boost. Less money going out, more money coming in. The foreign exchange equation fundamentally shifts. But what happens next, nobody predicted. Now, remember, in Africa, borders are lines on maps and economies are interconnected webs. When Nigeria's currency strengthened, neighboring countries felt the impact immediately. Benin, which had thrived on informal trade with Nigeria, suddenly faced competition. Nigerian goods became cheaper for international buyers, while Beninese products became relatively more expensive for Nigerian consumers. Cameroon saw spike in fuel prices as smuggled Nigerian petroleum, once cheap and plentiful, nearly tripled in price. A bottle of fuel jumped from 60 cents to $160 overnight. The Central Bank of West African states issued new regulations, tightening control on cross-border financial flows. Ghana's central bank emphasized maintaining steady stability against regional shocks. But the most stunning part wasn't really the regional impact. It was what this revealed about how modern economies actually work and why every country should pay attention to Nigeria's playbook. Here is the strategic truth that Nigeria proved. Sometimes weakness becomes strength if you know how to use it. The weaker Naira, it created a positive feedback loop. Cheaper exports led to more sales. More sales brought in more foreign currency. More foreign currency strengthened the Naira without making it uncompetitive. It's like economic jiu-jitsu, using your opponent's force against them. By August 2025, the Naira had recovered to 1,525 per dollar, a 15.28% strengthening in just 5 months. But here's the crucial part. It didn't stop there. Nigeria maintained 6 consecutive quarters of trade surplus. Capital inflows surged 67%, boosted by portfolio investments. The same international investors who fled were now rushing back. Now, here's what surprised me most about this story. Nigeria succeeded by doing the opposite of what conventional wisdom suggested. Instead of propping up their currency with scarce reserves, they let it find its natural value. Instead of fighting market forces, they harnessed them. So this wasn't just an economic victory, it was a statement. Africa's largest economy had shown that African solutions could work, that global financial orthodoxy wasn't the only path forward. But here's why this matters beyond Nigeria's borders. Nigeria's success is rewriting the playbook for how African economies can navigate global financial pressures. Other countries are watching, learning, adapting. The conversation about a unified West African currency, the ECO, has gained new momentum.
And borderless Africa, we demand Africa with one president, with one currency, with one military command, with one parliament.
Nigeria's successful reforms position it as a leader in this process, with other ECOWAS states discussing how to harmonize their policies. Now, international bodies like the World Bank and Fitch Ratings have taken notice, upgrading their outlooks on Nigeria's economic prospects. The country that was being written off 18 months ago is now being studied as a case study in effective reform. Now think about it. How many times have you seen African countries told to follow prescribed solutions from international institutions? Nigeria has proved that sometimes the best strategy is to trust your own analysis and take calculated risk. What struck me while researching this story is how the same experts who dismissed Nigeria's approach as reckless are now quietly studying their methods. That's the power of results. But there is one more layer to this story that makes it even more significant to Africa's future. Now, this Naira comeback represents something even much more bigger than one country's economic recovery. It's a preview of how Africa can challenge the global financial system on its own terms. And here's where a country comes in. Every African nation faces pressure on their currency, trade balance, and economic sovereignty. Nigeria's playbook offers insights that go far beyond oil and exports. So whether you're in Kenya watching the shilling, or in Ghana observing the cedi, or South Africa tracking the rand, the principles Nigeria applied can be adapted to your context. The question isn't whether your country should copy Nigeria's exact moves. The question is, what can your country learn about turning apparent weakness into strategic strength? So here's my challenge to you. Look at your own country's economic strategy. Look at how your lenders handle currency pressure, trade relationships, and international skepticism. Are they following the old playbook, the one that had experts betting against Nigeria? Or are they thinking strategically like chess players who see moves that others miss? Because if Nigeria taught us anything, it's that sometimes the best moments to make bold moves is when everyone expects you to fail. Drop a comment down below and tell me, what economic strategy do you think your country should adopt based on Nigeria's example? What will you do differently if you were advising your nation's leaders? And if you found this analysis valuable, there is more from where this came from. The game is changing. The question is, are you watching closely enough to see the new rules being rewritten? I'm Obituaries, and you're watching The Strategic Lens. See you in my next investigation. Bye.